11:34. Hey everybody, it is 12:34 Eastern, but it's 11:34 my time. I just looked at my phone to see what time it was. I was like 11:35. Oh snap! How is everyone doing on today? This is Soap and Suds, which is basically all the Virgo stuff. I decided to do this today because I wanted to come live to talk about what happened last night. I was the victim of some trolling. And it's interesting because part of me knew that it was going to happen. And this is how. A few days ago, I've been commenting a lot or connecting with via the internet someone new in a few different places. And so I've said my real name to him. And then one day he replied to one of my comments on here, and he was like, I never know if I should use people's real names or not. And I was like, well, like that was a thing for me last November about using my real name on the internet. So like I've already gone through this. It is what it is, right? At the same time, I opened up my PayPal to start posting the paypal.me link. Now, instead of posting the link, I just put with my paypal.me. Yes. Assuming that, if I had to type it, I could. But it shows my full name on it. I was like, oh my gosh, my full name on PayPal. And I even talked to one of my best friends. Oh, Tua, Cups, okay. Bottom of the deck, the shadow side. Oh my gosh. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm ready for this. The Hermit, okay, that's fine. And she was like, oh, just do it. Well, she didn't say, oh, just do it. But before she replied, I was like, you know what, it's time. Also, at the same time, I've been making a lot of public posts on my own social media, especially since June, when all of the George Floyd stuff started going down in the protests and everything. Since then, I decided to make some things a little bit more public so that people know exactly where I stand. Employers, anyone who would interact with me, you know exactly where I stand if you look me up. And since then, I've just been making more stuff like public or caring less, right? And then a few days ago, I made a video and my absent-minded self was like, I'm not gonna show my full name. So I chose to cover part of my name with my name and my address. And then I watched it back. I was like, oh my gosh, I really just did that. So part of me knew that, because as soon as I was like, oh my gosh, my address is up there. And I was like, okay, that's when I was like, brace yourself for something, right? I guess I didn't know that it would be what it was yesterday. But honestly, it's like 2020, right? A lot of things on the social media is public anyway. There isn't really like privacy. And so it's like, I don't know, I'm not necessarily spooked or whatever. And I had a feeling that it was going exactly where it was going. But y'all know me. I'm just like, oh yeah, really? Oh my gosh. And I don't know. I literally just saw these two at the cut. It's just really, yesterday was like a day of really just like showing me how far I've come since last year. And it's privated now, but I went back through my channel and I was like, when is the first time I went live with cards? And it was like July 20th, 2019. I was like, oh snap. I've used cards unofficially on my channel for over a year now. And that in and of itself is something that I never thought I would do. Like, even when I read for my roommate, I read for him because we were like really close. And I was like, I'm not going to do this for anybody else. And then there was one person who I met through a mutual friend on Snapchat, and I pulled him a few cards, and then he started shouting me out. He was like, if Patrick ever gets in the tarot, I'm like, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, bruh, like, I ain't ever getting into it. And now look at me. There's some things in my personal life, and I've been having these amazing conversations with my mom. And we just cleared something up last night that happened in 2017. And I think it was still affecting her, but she wasn't comfortable with telling me how much it did. Right. And then they put my mama name on here, and I'm just like, okay. And that's why I told the story about in elementary school, the yo mama jokes. Because I'm like, people really just be trying to do whatever they can to get a reaction out of you sometimes. And like, part of me, if I'm being completely honest, that's so like the video I made last night is the most disliked video that I have on here. And like, part of me wants to dislike it. Because then it'll balance out the likes and the dislikes. And like, I just feel like joining in on the petty. But I've only been trolled like 1 or 2 other times. And it's like, and especially like, I'm looking at the stuff that I've recently shared on my Facebook, and I'm like, okay. Like, it doesn't take a genius to like find my name, do a Facebook search, and I've literally just started making a whole bunch of public posts. So it's not anything like, oh my gosh, right? But like, part of me is like, oh my gosh, like, you know, I have a fairly small audience over here in my own little corner of the internet. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got trolls, I've made it. But then if I think back on some of the people who I was, or who I started to kind of sort of distance myself from a little bit naturally a year ago, it's like, oh. And if I think on some of the super petty people that I've met or come across, I wouldn't really say I've met a lot of people. If I think of some of the petty people that I've come across since then, I'm like, oh. And then just like knowing how some other folks are, like they just try to like get under your skin or whatever. I'm like, oh, you know. So it was a little disappointing because I don't feel like I've necessarily made it on YouTube by getting trolled or getting disliked. I'm just like, oh, it's just probably some of the petty, miserable people that I've come across. So that was, it honestly was, or is a little bit of a downer because I'm like, oh, you know. But anyway, I don't know. I just had a feeling, especially when I saw that I post, like I had my address up. I was like, okay, so something is about to happen. Because that's how it works. That's the language of the universe, right? You don't get, like, someone doesn't ask you if they can use your real name or your first name, and then like you don't notice how much you're like how many posts you're making public on Facebook, and then notice that, you know, or go through the whole like, oh my gosh, like PayPal, I can't just put my first name on that, it has my full name. You don't go through all that without a reason. But if there's one thing that yesterday proved to me is like how much I've grown in so many areas and how much it's like how ready I am for the next step. And it's not that I necessarily needed yesterday to prove that to me, but it does kind of sort of motivate me a little bit, if I'm being completely honest. Because it's like, regardless of how much hesitation, and I feel like, yeah, hesitation is the right word. Not necessarily, there's a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of fear, mostly hesitation. But like, regardless of whatever it is, like from last year, I've grown in so many ways. And it's like the next thing, it's not that big of a deal. So again, you know, thankful for what transpired on last night. And then I told my mom about it and we both kind of laughed. And she was like, why would, who? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. There's a handful of petty people that I've come across since a year ago. Trolls are just trolls. The information is available. I'm like, I don't know. You know, you would think because I'm just like still like I don't really mess with nobody. So there would have to be someone who's better to like, I don't know, waste time on or with. And it's like I barely interact and engage anyway. I do interact and engage. I'm just like not the best at keeping up with the chat. But I just felt like, and then I had a dream last night about a rat. It was weird because like first I can't remember what happened, but then there was a rat who was like turning stuff into stone or something. And it's not even, oh, it is the metal rat. It's the year of the metal rat. Okay. But then it was kind of sort of like following me, and then my grandma was there, and we ended up at my first job where my grandmother used to work, and it's a launderer. It's a laundry factory, and they would wash. They would take care of linens from nearby hospitals and nursing homes. And so sometimes, right, I know what death smells like because whenever somebody died, you can smell it as soon as it came down the line. I worked in the part where we would like sort the clothes. And so, like, the worst of the worst came down the line. And I was like, oh my gosh. But we were in that factory that has been closed for a long time. I do want to get 2 cards today. Actually, I'll only take this one because I'm already talking and this doesn't need to be extra long. Um, and the rat was in there, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And she started working. My grandma started like sorting the clothes. I'm like, girl, like we getting chased by this rat. We're getting harassed by this rat, grandma. Like, no, I ain't taking these. I ain't even shuffling them yet. I am gonna get this face down. So this will be our limitation. The Witch's Tarot will be the medicine. And for the medicine, I'm going to do is pull before and after this card, and then this will be a final message of inspiration or whatever to help us. And that'll be Soaps and Suds. I've uploaded like 3 of these already, but I decided to do this one live. And then like she wasn't even worried about the rat. I wasn't really, but at the same time, I saw that that thing was turning stuff into stone. And then it ended up in the factory, and so I caught it. And like there was this one of these crate type things that had a metal mesh on it, and I basically just like wrapped its mouth around the metal mesh, and then it like turned itself into stone. And then my grandma was going to clock out. I'm like, girl, let's just go. Like, why? I didn't even know you was coming here to work, but I guess she was there working. And then she was going to clock out, and the rat wasn't really a problem after that. And then we were walking somewhere, and while we were walking there, there was like a parade, but we didn't see all of the parade at once. Because first there was some cars, and I think we needed to cross the street. And then that's when I started seeing like some people in the marching band costume, and just like parade folks starting to walk around. But it wasn't like the whole show. It was like groups and clumps of people in the parade. I was like, what is happening? Then I woke up. So the limitation that we're looking at today is the Ruler of Swords. No, he in reverse for me. These are gender neutral in this deck. That's why they use rulers and sovereigns instead of kings and queens. And then they have the High Sage, the pillar and the anchor instead of the Emperor and the Empress. So it's the King of Swords energy, but it's the Ruler of Swords. There are these butterfly wings at the top. Butterflies, everyone's talking about butterflies lately. Yesterday, my mom was talking about butterflies. I was like, doesn't my auntie and my other cousin love butterflies? She was like, yeah, your auntie loves butterflies. And I know a whole bunch of people who are into butterflies. Now, personally, I love the symbolism of butterflies, but I don't like butterflies. Because now, and I keep seeing pictures of them on the internet, and all I can look at is their little legs, and I'm just like, ugh. It grosses me out, okay? But like I said, I do love the symbolism of butterflies, and I think I actually saw a butterfly in a dream last night. It was like on me or something. Then there's like smaller butterfly wings. There's a crown. There's a third eye, crescent moon, and the sword is pointed downwards, going through the crown. We have 3 triangles, upward pointing, symbolizing. I was gonna say fire, but with the crown, I'll say air, and it's an air card, so why not? But with the sword upside down, it's like it's grounding all of this transformation so that it can't take place. The ruler of swords, y'all can't even see it. The ruler of swords is Aquarian energy. It's fixed air. There's some of that. Oh, you can see that butterfly, that little butterfly right though. There you go. You can see some of that. Some of that, some of that. Let's see. Oh, there we go. There's the sword. We got those huge butterfly wings up there, downward pointing into the crown with the little butterfly wings on the side. It's fixed air. It's fixed patterns of thought and habits because of those patterns of thought. And since it's fixed, it's like it's not allowing us to come into what is new. And if this is about the haters again, because y'all wanted some time, so I'll give y'all some airtime. Why not? I guess this will be the only time, right? I don't deal with it in real life. I don't entertain it on the internet. I'm just like, I got better things to do with my time. Or if I'm being honest, I got better things to not do, to not actually do. But that changes today. I'm actually like kind of really excited because there's a lot of things that I have at my disposal that I'm finally ready to like really utilize. And I think it's going to be, it's not a shortcut, but it's going to get me out of this position quicker than I thought. Or not quicker than I thought. It'll ease the transition. There are some tools and some resources that I have to ease the transition into the next phase of my life. And I'm finally ready to really start using them. And that's what my personal life yesterday was showing me, and how much I've grown and changed in my ability to use them, and like coming out of my I don't need anybody mentality and all kinds of stuff like that. Also, like I said, being more comfortable on the internet and just knowing that the internet is what it is after what happened last night. And like all of the butterfly stuff, it's like, yeah, like I really have changed. And I really don't have to hold any of this hesitation anymore, right? I'm not gonna, it's like all of that stuff is over and we'll figure out the rest as we figure it out, right? The divine got me, I got me, we got me. I'll be good. But with this King of Swords again, that could be an energy that's more focused and dedicated on staying stuck to or clinging to whatever we already know. And that's why this sword is face down. But with the sword being face down, it's like it grounds this crown, it grounds the butterfly wings, it grounds everything on here. And so nothing can take off. Our perceptions and our like mentally we can't expand because we're not ready to pick up this new information. It's like we'd rather stick to what we already knew that wasn't working. Shadow side, Four of Wands, and the Three of Pentacles are at the bottom of the deck, right? This is like nothing popping in your life, so I guess this one, like I said, it's for the haters or whatever. In general, it's for us in general. You ain't got to be a hater. You can be like a low-key hater, right? You can be like low-key jealous or envious of the people in your life who are moving because you feel stuck in your own life. And instead of picking up your sword to make something happen, you'd rather, I don't want to say you'd rather, but maybe you're like finding difficulties in actually moving forward, in allowing your mind to be changed and your perceptions to be changed, to move forward and progress in a different way. Maybe you piddled away a significant amount of time not doing the things that you knew you should be doing because you were afraid of the pain, the fear, the vulnerability that lied beneath all of the work that you were being led to do. So you chose not to do it. You chose to remain strong on a foundation that could have given you sort of familiarity, maybe some comfort, but it may not have necessarily been the strongest or the most suitable for moving forward. And with the shadow side, the Four of Wands and the Three of Pentacles, again, it's like you'd rather kind of sort of, or you fall prey to an energy of raining on someone else's parade or trying to rain on someone else's parade rather than building for yourself, right? And that is a little bit of jealousy. It's like, you know, why don't it work for me? What's so special about this person? And if you ask them what's so special about me, a lot of things, but also at the same time, nothing. honestly, if the past year and a half of my life had like the only thing special about me is that I'm like actually putting in the work to get what I want to be, who I know I can be, and to do. Hold up. No, that was the Emperor. I was like, did I already skip over the King of Swords? No, that was the Emperor. Okay. We're going looking around the King of Swords. Like that's the only thing special about me is that I mean, I talk how I talk and then I walk how I walk. King of Wands and the Queen of Wands are together. And then the Ace of Wands is right there. Now that's something fiery and passionate in you. All right, I see y'all, kings and queens. I feel like the desires are finally on the same page. Like we're both wanting the same thing and we both want to do something about it. But who's going to take that first step? Who's going to make that first move? Who are you going to choose to be? Ooh, is that the Three of Wands and the Three of Cups together? Like I see it. Like I see it. They line up. King of Cups with the Moon, though, and the Six of Wands with that Knight of... Oh, okay, here we go. Ooh! All right, okay. So we have two sixes sitting outside. By the way, how am I doing this? We'll do it this way. This way feels right. So we have the Six of Wands and the Six of Pentacles sitting outside of this King of Swords. So the medicine for this energy is to, I mean, it's honestly what came out in the dice. Was that Legacy Channel? Yeah, that was a Legacy Channel. That was over here. I rolled the dice at the end of the video. And it was this earth, throat, temperance energy of the mantra that we repeat over and over and over until we see a change in the world. Now, this is interesting because the Knight of Pentacles is facing the King of Swords, and the King of Swords is standing his ground against the Knight of Pentacles, and beyond the Knight, or beyond the King of Swords lies the Magician. Beyond the King of Swords lies our ability to actually make movement and changes and progress and to evolve and all of that stuff in our own lives to the point where, you know, we ain't got to necessarily be so concerned about what other people are doing. And it's just kind of sort of like a naturally human type thing, right? If ever you encounter some sort of limitation or a wall, it's like some people like to lash out against people who they perceive as whatever, who they perceive as continuing to evolve and change and grow. Some people look for people who they perceive as in a worse situation than them to make themselves feel better. And some people try to take that first. Some people take that sort of like envy and jealousy a step further by trying to bring other people down to their level or beneath them, or to just get to them in some way, right? And in my mind, it's like if you would Knight of Pentacles redirect that energy and effort into actually doing what it is that you need to do, like I feel like you would be good. The Knight of Pentacles into the Magician, this is a process. This is a journey. This doesn't happen overnight. But with the Knight of Pentacles, it requires dedication and effort. Just like when the King of Pentacles came out yesterday. And it's just, I guess it's a little bit more than a lot of people are willing to do. But I mean, the Knight of Pentacles into the Magician, like I said, that's the same energy that was over here. It's the affirmations, it's the mantra, it's sticking to your guns, it's fixing what you say, what you speak out into the world, because the third eye is how you perceive the world. That's outside in. Your throat is what you speak out into the world. That's inside out. And so your throat, what you speak, and your mind, your thoughts, like your thoughts and your actions kind of sort of prepare the space around you, right? When you breathe, when you talk, it's an exchange of gas. You inhale, you exhale. And whatever you're putting out when you exhale And again, linked to however you sort of perceive of things and their ability to change or the current set that they are. Also linked to your heart, like high key, the heart plays a pretty big role. But this is only, we're talking about the throat and the King of Swords. So it's all about the special emphasis on the mind, the thoughts, the actions, the words, right? Thoughts and words. It's like just like that Knight of Swords that came out when the cornucopia was right here. He looking in the same, facing the same direction Knight of Swords was. Like it's all there, but we can't put this energy into actually getting it. We'd rather get frustrated, upset, disappointed, impatient, and put out all of this stuff that gets us further. Right? That's like when they say if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Because then at the very least, you wouldn't be speaking out against the thing that you're trying to manifest. You wouldn't be speaking out against your abundance that you have for you. You wouldn't be putting this energy out into the universe that now you need to learn from because you got to go back and clean it up. It's like you keep putting garbage out there. So why are you surprised that you keep having to sift and sort through garbage? But again, for some folks, it's easier to not actually put effort towards getting what they want. But like that's the medicine for this energy. There's no other way to say it. It takes dedication to become this. And there are these constant sort of confirmations, and like there is this encouragement that happens along the way that builds and builds and builds and builds and builds your trust, that builds and builds and builds and builds and builds your abilities and your capabilities. And it's like sometimes, unfortunately, or it just is what it is, sometimes we don't allow ourselves to enter a certain space until we are so vastly overqualified for it that by the time we get into it, we're like, oh, that's easy. But if you can change your relationship to your work and to you, then it's like, as you meet the requirements for these spaces, or even if you are slightly underqualified for these spaces, you can still be granted access because you've proven your dedication. And this is something that you prove to you and something that you prove to spirit. This isn't something that you prove to anybody else. Because if you're dedicated enough, it's like you're going to grow through that space and not be so frustrated or whatever that you just give up and walk away. Right? If you're the give up, walk away, throw a hissy fit, throw a tantrum type of person, then maybe you do have to wait until you're vastly overqualified, because it's like, well, that's going to be the only way that you don't come into the space and then leave the space. Because if you face any difficulty or any challenge in life, then you just throw the whole thing away. And it's like, okay. But that's for you to get over within yourself, or to not. It's your life. You can do whatever you want. You can keep speaking against, you can stay stuck if you want to stay stuck. You ain't got to progress. But just because you choose to stay stuck doesn't mean that other people have to choose to stay stuck, right? And then that's when you get people, like when the hostilities card came out, oh, you think you're better than me? You think you're so good? You think you're so perfect? You think you're so this? You think you're so that? And it's like, no, but I continue to try. And just because you gave up and just because it's too much for you doesn't mean that I'm not going to continue to try. Right? I have my path and my journey. You have yours. Like I said, I choose to be inspired by people instead of being envious and jealous of people. And also at the same time, I'm not afraid to forge my own paths and to blaze my own trails. I don't follow exactly anybody. There are so many people I come in contact with for a season. And then once that season is over, I kind of sort of float on. I kind of sort of move on, because it's like, I'm the type of person, I'm very Knight of Pentacles. It's about continuous movement. And I might be slow enough that while I'm doing this and slowly progressing and slowly moving and slowly evolving, like you could be doing this. And so that's why, like, we in the same space for a minute. But eventually it's like, if I'm here and you still down here, I'm not going to keep running the same circles with you. I'm not going to do it. I ain't got no kids. I ain't got no man. I have no obligations. I don't got to be stuck for nobody. Even if I did have kids and a man, it's like, hey, get right or get left behind. I've lived enough of my life roaming in circles and doing all kinds of stuff like that. I've done that and I'm over it and I'm not going back to it. Not sorry at all. We all have our own choices to make, right? And so there are some people who I just kind of sort of, for one reason or another, stopped resonating with, or my attention was just drawn elsewhere, right? Like I had a really astrology heavy phase early. I had a fairly tarot-ish heavy, well, that was mostly related to my astrology heavy phase. I came across some other people in my astrology heavy phase. And so then they played a sort of mentorship role for a minute. And then it's like, you know, we all have our own stuff. And I went back to school. And when I went back to school, I was just less on stuff anyway. And then when I was less on stuff, other stuff started happening. I'm like, you know what? I don't have time for drama. I'm not entertaining this. I'd rather not. And so I distanced myself. And like now it's like, you know, every now and then I'll check in, like, especially if I feel like, oh, I haven't like heard from this person in a while. They just dropped on my mind. They just dropped in my spirit. I wonder what they're up to. Right. Sometimes it's still a little bit of nonsense. Sometimes it's not. I'm like, oh, and then I'll speak for whatever. I'm like, oh, hey, like it's been a minute. Like I've been good. How are you? Blah, blah, blah. And it's very genuine. And then I just kind of sort of float back. Like I'm a Pisces, you know, the whole ocean, the whole world is not my turf, but, you know, and I think sometimes, and then like, if ever I am put on the spot, I can be pretty direct. It's like, you know what? I'm not entertaining this because it's like, I have better things to not do with my time, right? At least like I'd rather enjoy my time. If I'm going to procrastinate and not do what I should be doing, at least I'd rather enjoy it. But anyway, this is the medicine for this. But like this energy and this energy do not mesh because this energy needs everything to be proved. It's like this energy needs it to be a proven solution before they even give any thought to it. And this Knight of Pentacles is just like, I know what I'm doing. And at the end, like by the end, it'll make sense. By the end, all of the pieces will come together. By the end, you'll know exactly what's up. Right? But this energy, like it needs direct results. It's like if this can't see it, then it ain't it. And usually I feel like the medicine is something to help you, but I mean, this time it's just like you just got to keep doing it until you get better at it. Right? Practice makes perfect. Nothing beats a failure but to try. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Right? Rome wasn't built in a day. All of these sayings of it's not going to be perfect the first time you do it, and it's not going to be immediate. Some things require sustained effort. Some things require dedication. Some things require conviction. And conviction is something that, like nobody's perfect, but conviction is something that sometimes we can kind of sort of lack. Because it is easier to just be like, you know what, I'm frustrated, I quit, I give up. And then to see someone who isn't as frustrated or whatever and to feel some type of way about yourself because they're doing something that maybe you perceive of as too difficult for you to do. But I don't want to say this is the only way to this energy, but like if you want to actually learn this energy to utilize it yourself, it requires this, right? Like I said, this is magician school. I've been seeing this card a lot. So the final message here is, well, not the final message, because I'll get a final message from the Witch's Tarot, but the universe has your back card messages are, I choose love no matter what, right? And that's this energy of dedication. It's like, I choose love no matter what. Even if I'm upset, even if I'm frustrated, even if I'm going through my own personal life, I still choose love. I choose to handle this within myself instead of projecting all of this negativity onto someone else. And then the second card is, I let go of the shadow of the past by seeing someone for the first time with the eyes of love. Oh, wow. I let go of the shadows of the past by seeing someone for the first time with the eyes of love. For the first time. And then there's that big old third eye. And again, like, it's all pretty words, but this is the Knight of Pentacles. The Knight of Pentacles is probably the only knight that you can't convince with words, right? The Knight of Swords, if you sell him a story and it makes logical sense to him, regardless of if it's riddled with fallacies or not, he'll charge. If you make it sound pretty, both the Knight of Wands, well, if you make it sound pretty, the Knight of Cups will charge with his dreamy horse, right? If you make it sound desirable and fun, then the Knight of Wands will charge. But the Knight of Pentacles is like, before I exert any energy or effort, you're going to have to make this actually make sense to me, because, right, I don't move on things that aren't necessarily for me. I might be slow, but by the time I arrive, you know I'm coming with something tangible, something. I mean, choose love, not only in your own heart, but also in your mind's eye. And I think that's another thing, like, we love people, but there are so many conditions on our, it's like we love people, but it's like we love people to the extent that we love ourselves. And a lot of people don't really like themselves or love themselves. So it's not a lot. That's why a lot of love is so extremely conditional, because we love people to the extent that we love ourselves. And if we can unconditionally love ourselves, then hey, you know, we can unconditionally love someone else. But if we don't, then it's like there's going to continue to be those blockages and limitations. Right. And that was another thing. When I was talking with my mom, I was like, you know, like, part of me was like, you know, she should know that this is so uncharacteristic of me. Like, I'm trying to tell her everything that I've been through. And at that moment in time, we were kind of sort of both growing through. And so the communication wasn't completely there. And the situation was a little heated and a little rushed. And everyone was like tired. And it was just a perfect storm for misunderstanding. And I think sometimes we do have these perfect storms of misunderstanding because there's a bit of a separation that needs to happen. There's a bit of space that needs to be taken for one reason or another. And it does take a little bit of vulnerability to be like, hey, like, this is what was going on. I'm sorry. Like, is there any way we can salvage this? Or can we like talk? Right? I think sometimes our ego kicks in, and it's like your ego drives for long enough. You're like, oh, haha, whatever. And then you get to the point where it's like, oh, well, you know, I kind of miss that person or someone else or the situation. And then you're like, well, it's been too much time. And then you're like, oh, well, you know, they'll reach out. It's like, okay. Eventually, with that magician energy, we have to be the ones to make something happen. Or we got to be like, you got to make a step if you want something to happen. You got to do something, right? Because if everything you do is mental and you completely like, and you constantly talk against it or doubt it or second guess it, if all of your effort is mental, then like, it's like you continue to cancel it out, right? You don't even check out before you clear your cart, right? And then I remember one time, it's like you don't even complete your order, and then you're waiting there for like an hour, 2 hours. It came back out. You're waiting there for like an hour, 2 hours, like, where is my stuff? Because it was food. Or it could be a few days if it's something else. Magician and the Two of Cups. That's how you actually manifest it. that love for self. Um, but it was like an hour and a half. I go to the website like to check, like, or to see if I can track it or whatever. Magician and the Hangman, not making that choice is keeping everything held up. Or it could just be a waiting period, knowing that everything that you've ordered is on its way. I take it whichever way it resonates. But then I get back on there and it's like, oh, I didn't even complete the order. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even place the order. Now the restaurant is closed. Well, there's the Queen of Swords with the Magician. Now, this is actually speaking your truth. The King of Swords is conducting yourself in a way that aligns with the truth. And with that King of Swords being the limitation, it's like we're not conducting ourselves the way that we would choose to align. And so if you're not acting in that way, then like, why are you surprised that nothing is happening? That's like you're not placing the order. It's like, you want it. Okay, cool. Like, are you going to place the order? Are you going to let somebody know? And that's another thing that my mom was like. She was like, sometimes you do this thing where you're not extremely direct with what you want people to do. You'll just say some general statement like, I kind of want to do this. And then you're expecting someone to be like, well, can you help me out? And I'm like, well, I know that like in day-to-day life, that's not great. But if this is like literally someone's job, like, I don't know. But that's another lesson that I had to learn. Or not I had to learn, but that's another point that was brought up yesterday. Yesterday was so, like, this new year since September 1st has been so, it's like poignant every day because I have a lot of marks to hit and check. I got a lot of stuff to do. And it's really time to start doing it. And it's going to take off. And like everything that I need, I'll just take it. Five of Swords. With the Six of Wands at the bottom of the deck. Before you can claim victory, you actually got to fight the fight, right? You can't run off of the battlefield and then expect a celebration. Hello? It's like you ain't fighting the fight expecting all the rewards. What did they say? Like, no, is it no guts, no glory? What's the saying? I don't know. It's like we're not even doing what it is that we need to do to claim what we want. It's like we've gotten by for so long doing the bare minimum, but we're not going into a bare minimum space. We're in a very not bare minimum time right now. Right? Because the bare minimum in the past was just like, oh, go to your happy place. And in your happy place, think of everything that you want. It's like, okay. That I don't think that's too much working right now. And maybe it's because everything is so in that space already jumbled up. Actions speak louder than words, right? And words speak louder than thoughts. So actions speak much, much, much louder than thoughts. And in a time where everything is so foggy and unclear, it's like actions speak the loudest. You can't, it's harder. Okay, there are still some like cross-cultural differences, but it's harder to like miscommunicate in action than it is a word, and much harder to miscommunicate than a thought. Because I mean, telepathy ain't necessarily something that's widely utilized, available in practice. So we ain't mind readers. And even if we were mind readers, it ain't our job to read minds, right? If you want something, speak on it. That's another thing I've been, like I just said, you got to be clear and you got to be direct. Don't leave things up to interpretation. Speak on it as you want it. And if you don't, then it's like, how upset can you really be if you never place the order? So that's this. I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. Oh, wait, I didn't even read this one. I was like, oh my gosh. I think this is another one that we've seen lately, though. Let's see. When I focus on my inner light, I see the world through the lens of love. Well, here's another card about seeing the world through the lens of love, or seeing love. We saw that the other day, didn't we? And this one again is, I let go of the shadow of the past by seeing someone for the first time with the eyes of love. The eyes of love, the lens of love. And it's like when you move more into that unconditional space, you would be surprised and look at the bottom of the deck. This is the one we keep seeing. I choose love no matter what. And it actually has been my experience that it's like when I look at a situation or a person through the lens of love, not only does it allow me to practice and feel more and more and more, or less and less and less conditional love, more and more unconditional. But instead of more and more unconditional, it's actually closer to less and less and less conditional. Because it's like when you can see it through love, then the conditions kind of sort of evaporate because it's patient and it's compassionate and it's understanding because it chooses to be, or at least in my case, that's what it felt like for me. So, and then it's like when you do all of that, it's like it eliminates a lot of whatever, not whatever, but it eliminates a lot of, I can't even describe it, but it's like I realized at one point that I didn't have anyone to blame. And like I could have blamed a lot of people. I could have blamed anybody but me. But I was like, that doesn't feel right. And then I almost got to the spot of like blaming myself. And I was like, well, that doesn't feel right either. Because I mean, in that moment at that time, I was doing whatever felt right or whatever felt whatever, right? And when you don't have anybody to blame and you actually have to face it, it opens you up to actually growing from those experiences. And it opens you up to seeing the reason why behind whatever happened. And when you can see the reason why, it alleviates, it's like when you're in blame, and if you, a lot of people, when we're in the mindset of blaming someone, and when we don't take responsibility for our own actions, what happens is like we need or we force other people to be accountable. And in forcing someone else to be accountable, it's like it in some ways can lessen the lesson. It in some ways takes away from a greater reason why it happened. And then it takes away from, or it chips at what it is that you have to learn or how you can grow and what you have to gain from that situation. Right. It's like because we're blaming so much that we miss out on what it is that we're supposed to be gaining. So that's what I got. Lots of stuff, just like really, it honestly feels like major completions. And I guess I realized this morning that if I look at myself and if I look at how I feel within myself, for the first time, maybe ever, I don't feel incomplete. I don't feel like there's something missing. I don't feel like there's something more. Like I can still grow, don't get me wrong. And I'm not perfect, don't get me wrong, but I'm feeling whole. I'm feeling complete. And one of the biggest pieces missing was the piece that I was able to regain in June and July and August and even now by coming into my truth and no longer fearing being upset or being angry, especially like justifiably angry. And it's like it's opened me up to being all of me without as much trepidation or worry or fear or anxiety or whatever. And because of that, I don't feel like anything is missing. So that's like, at least for me, that's huge, because I feel like so many times in dreams, it's like I have different things that I look for periodically. And I actually went looking for myself 2 nights ago now, night before last. And what I found, I was shocked to see, because it wasn't me. It wasn't the me who I am right now. But after waking up and after, the wise, wise words of Russell Ing around, Mr. Around, as I call him sometimes and frequently, admittedly. But it's like, yeah, I don't feel incomplete. And now all I need to do is act from this space and to navigate and to continue to be and to continue to shine and to continue discovering little quirks and whatever about me, and appreciating them all along the way. Because honestly, like I said, I've lived enough of my life silent, not speaking, unexpressive, uninvolved, dispassionate, unmotivated. It's like, if you don't like me, you don't like me. Somebody out there will. And if nobody does, I'm still gonna. Well, okay, I'm not gonna say that, because I do have people that like me. So I'm not gonna discredit those bonds that I have, and I'm not gonna discredit that love and that affection. If you don't like me, there are people who do. And honestly, like I said yesterday, I don't compete for affection. I don't too much feel like I have to prove myself to anybody, because if I'm not for you, I'm not for you. And I'm not going to waste my time. I've never been one to waste my time. It's like, if you don't like me, you don't like me. If I don't like you, I don't like you. And again, it isn't that everything is so rigid that, my mind and my heart can't be changed over time, and that I won't be open to allowing you to show me who you actually are. But if you continue to reveal more and more and more of yourself to me, and it just gets darker and uglier or more stagnant, then it's like, you know what? No judgment at all. But for what I'm doing, I don't have time for this. It's just like, I can't entertain it. And if I try to help you see things and you get the information but you don't use it or whatever, again, that's your path, that's your journey. I don't have time. And honestly, I don't feel bad about it. If I'm being completely 100% honest, I don't feel bad, because I love myself, I care about myself, and I'm actively invested in continuing to grow, continuing to evolve, and to creating and building the life that I want for me. I don't have any responsibilities to anybody else. I'm responsible for me and my happiness. And for my family and my chosen family, like, I don't mind making sacrifices. I don't mind being there. I don't mind being patient and compassionate and listening, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, how many times are we going to hit the same track, right? And again, it's a delicate balance, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to sabotage my happiness for somebody else, right? It's just not going to happen, because that's not fair to me, right? Like, if that's what you want to do to you with your life, that's fine. That's your choice. But I'm not gonna sacrifice mine for that. Like, no, thank you. Like, no, thank you. I'm good. I'd rather continue to grow and plant my own tree that grows these amazing juicy fruits that are so crispy and crunchy. They're apples, okay? Because I love apples. They're juicy, they're crispy, they're crunchy, they got a nice sheen, they're sweet, they smell nice. And it's like, I'm not a huge fan of peaches. I can eat a pear. I don't like plums. It's like, if that's what you got going on, you can have it. If you ain't got nothing going on, yeah, like that Seven of Swords, I'm sorry, but if you can't pick from this tree naturally, maybe go to gardening school. I don't know. I hope you have a good whatever whenever you see this, and I hope you're acting in alignment to make it even better. Emphasis on acting, emphasis on alignment. Bye.